G'day everyone, welcome to Get Lost with the Travel Guide with the name Ben. And guess what we're going to be talking about today? Toronto, also known as Toronto, all the way in Canada. What we're going to be talking to a tour guide friend of mine who used to take tours all around of Australia and around Sydney. Used to be a Sydney Harbour bridge climb tour guide. So a very knowledgeable person, very charismatic person. Known Tracy for about 3-4 years maybe. And yeah, she has relocated to Toronto in Canada about 4 or 5 months ago. So going to be a local, but like not a born and bred local, obviously, but we're going to unpack it. We're going to learn about Toronto. I'm fascinated. I've been doing my homework. I want to learn about it. I have been to Canada. I've only been to the west side. I've been to BC and Alberta. So I'm really fascinated to know. But first of all, g'day. It's a beautiful about 6 a.m. and it's about 10 p.m. my time. Is that about right?
That's about right. It's early. I don't get up early for many people, Ben, so you're lucky.
I know. I'm feeling very privileged. So you're ready to unpack bit of Canada. But what I'd really like to introduce you is Tracy. You can find her, and this is the inspiration of the TikTok called Everydaytrace. So, and Tracy has absolutely been crushing on TikTok with about 88,000 followers at the moment. And also her partner is even killing it even more, about 1.2 million followers. So the reason what's really sparked my interest is it's just hilarious because you get a lot of social media people or tour guides that, you know, go heavy on history and can quite vanilla, interesting, but vanilla. But Everydaytrace has just been everyday Toronto. And it's just been fascinating for me, like stuff that you just can really only find on the streets or if you actually live there. So I'd really like to learn and unpack it in the 4 or 5 months that we've been there. So are you ready, Tracy? Is that correct?
So ready. So ready, yeah.
All right, so my introduction, I was curious on my introduction if that's all correct or not. Is that how long you've been there? About 4 months, 5 months?
Yes, I got here the 1st of October last year. So I've been here since then. And I came in when it was fall here, so autumn, if you will. And it was an unseasonably warm autumn. So I thought go okay with the cold. And then Christmas was all fine. We had a white Christmas. It was beautiful. And then it's like Christmas finished. And then this mega cold set in. It was cold, but I was like, oh, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. And then the weather just changed. And now I'm absolutely freezing.
I've heard that. I've heard it's just horrendous. I mean, the coldest I've really endured is maybe a bit of Tasmania. I've spent a couple of years in the UK. I went to Sweden one time in the winter, got to about -10 and that was that was just brutal for me. But is that what you've endured, or is this more grim, or has it been enjoyable?
So -28 is the coldest. But the weird thing about the weather here is that they have this idea of feels like temperature. So it doesn't matter what the numbers are here. Like no one pays attention to the numbers, and it happens on like the news and the radio, not just people saying it, but it'll say it's -19. So you'll get in the car and you'll look at the thing and you'll go, oh God, it's -19. And then you turn on the radio and it's like, it's -19, but it feels like -26. Like, why don't we just say it's -26 if that's what it feels like when I get out of this car, if it's -26? But yeah, so the temperature gauge is nothing. So I've been in -28, but who knows what it felt like? Who knows what that felt like? I wasn't outside.
So it's like the placebo effect. People are literally lying to themselves to stomach the brutal coldness.
Yeah, I think in Australia we don't do that. We don't go, oh, it's 35, but it feels like you're burning. Yeah, so
we do. I'm 37, but I feel like I'm, you know, maybe that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm eating a salad, but I feel like a burger. Like it's just it's random.
Has the novelty worn off? Like I found that when you travel abroad, you know, you're there for a couple of days, couple of weeks, you're like, oh my God, everything's exciting. But you've just come out of winter, you're like, like is that, or is it still like, oh my God, I'm in Canada, like this is incredible?
No, the novelty's definitely still here. I feel like, because I'm 39 now, but I feel like
you feel 20. You don't look it, you feel younger.
There's that childhood sense of wonder that's really come back, because I think when I first got here, it was a bit like you're traveling. So everything's new and exciting. You want to see everything. but then as time goes on, it merges more into things that you learn because you live here. So it's even that other sense of wonder. So I think at the beginning it's like all bells and whistles, like, oh, it's so pretty, everything's different. But then when you're here for a longer time, you get to know like the culture more and things like that. So it does change. So I'm still in wonderment, I feel. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, while you're in wonderment, I have looked at your TikToks and they seem wonderful. What has been the wonderful standouts? Like for example, if you go traveling to Asia or to Africa, you know, there's significant cultural differences between Australia and those type of countries. But Canada and Australia, probably pound for pound around the globe, they're very similar. But what I'm sure there's also, I'm looking at the history and it's like it's very different history. But what
Yeah.
have you found on a day-to-day trace? Have you found in what have been the key differences? What have you found on a street level?
Um, the key differences are just, it feels a bit like, I don't know if you've ever seen the bizarre episode of Seinfeld, but it feels a bit like that. So everything is the same as it is in Australia, but just different. Like all the shops are like more spread out here, where we have more like shopping centers and stuff back home. Like everything is just a little bit different. Like the road rules are the same but slightly different. Like everything just has that little tweak to it. So yeah, I didn't know it was going to be as different as it's turned out to be, basically.
Is it a cultural difference? Like, or I mean, obviously what is the size of Toronto? Like, I've looked at the population. Actually, this is one thing I have never been, but I have been doing my homework on it. Are you actually familiar with what it is or the size of Toronto?
Actually, the crazy thing is, before I moved here, I found out that Toronto and Sydney are actually sister cities. And I didn't even know the concept of sister cities existed, but Toronto and Sydney are sister cities, which means that we're very similar in population, very similar in size, like all the similarities match up.
Did
And apparently
you?
we're,
Nah,
yeah,
like Sydney's 5 million. Toronto, like that metropolitan Sydney's over 5 million. Metropolitan Toronto's 10 million.
yeah.
Fourth
So
largest city in all of North America. It goes Mexico, New York, LA, Toronto. I didn't realize it was massive. It's bigger than San
it's,
Francisco. It's huge.
I didn't realize, and this might make me seem really stupid, but I didn't realize it was on the water either. I didn't realize there's a large body of water. I tell you what, I didn't realize. I have never, in all my travels, and I've traveled quite far, um, and I even used to be a trivia host. So I know a lot about the Great Lakes of the world, but I didn't know how big Lake Ontario was. Like it is huge. It's very hard for me to not know it's the sea. Like it's you can't see the end of it. When I think lake, I think I can see to the end of the lake over there, but
Mm,
you can't with Lake Ontario. It is such a massive body of water, and there's boats in it and things like this. But there's no, like, I keep looking out thinking, oh, there might be a whale, but there's no whales there because it's a lake. It's not the
yeah,
sea.
yeah.
So I
But
found that so
isn't
bizarre.
it just down the road something very significant with the water called Niagara Falls? Have you been?
Yeah, I have been. I
Do
have. I
tell.
did it on my first weekend here, and true to form, it was the only weekend that
How
just
far is
rained.
it? Is it like you pop down the road, like is it just out of town, or is it really hard to?
It's about a 2 hour drive. So think
It's
Sydney to
manageable.
Hunter
Day trip.
Valley.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a little day trip. So I think when you look up things to do in Toronto, as I've frequented that Google many times, um, it is it's the number one sort of day trip. So kind of like, or maybe like the Blue Mountains from Sydney. So it's the same sort
So
of thing.
can you walk through someone? I've never been. If you're going to tell me, hey, what do you do? How do you get there? What do you experience? What to do? What not to do?
Well, we drove obviously, but there's a lot of day trips that you can do. Like there's a lot of companies that'll drive you out there in a bus for the day and that sort of thing. But you basically get there, and I've been to the American side of the falls before, but not the Canadian side. Um, so you get there, and it's literally obviously huge waterfalls. It's like it's beautiful. I couldn't stop thinking about Superman when I was there because that's just such an iconic scene. But um, so America is like just across a small bridge. Like it's so super close when you're there. It's quite surreal. So You can look down into the falls. There's loads of little boats and day trips that you can do, but I was already so wet, I didn't think I'd want to get on a boat and get more wet. But you can see them all. They've got the same coloured ponchos on, that sort of thing. But the bizarre thing about Niagara Falls, I think, is the area that sort of surrounds it. So right near the falls, there's beautiful parks and things like that. But then out of that is almost like what I can really only describe as like a little mini Vegas strip without the casinos. So like just loads of like arcade things. Like I did not expect that. I did not expect that at all. Like Ripley's Believe It or Not is there, like 3D cinemas.
So they made
like,
it like into a theme park just right next to it. So you got this
yeah,
beautiful natural wonder, which
yes.
you think people think, okay, I want to get away from the riffraff of the big smoke. I want to get one with nature. You can't do that. You're surrounded by Disneyland, sort of.
It's like that. It really
Wow.
is. It's like an amusement park. It's like nothing I've ever experienced before. And it's right there. So there's the falls, and then you turn, you walk up that street, which is lights, camera action. It's crazy.
Wow.
It's
So
so
it's
crazy.
almost kind of like the pyramids in Egypt in a way. Like you think you're out in the middle of the desert, and then no, there's a city right there with KFC and Pizza Hut, only a short walk from the pyramids.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't realize.
It's also where I had my first beaver tail. Are you familiar with beaver tails?
No. What are you what is
Yeah.
this?
Now, I'm a vegetarian, so I will state that I'm not eating the tail of a beaver, which is what I originally thought it was. But it is basically, I can only describe it like this, and I'm probably not doing it justice very well, but it's like a flat donut that's in the shape of a beaver tail. So they're big, they're like this big. And it's like a flat donut that sort of gets fried, and then you can fill it with whatever toppings. Now, on Niagara Falls, I made the mistake of getting the all bells and whistles. So I got like Nutella, Reese's Pieces, banana. Like I packed my beaver tail like this. My partner just got lemon and sugar on hers, which I've come to know now is the way to have a beaver tail, just plain and simple, just like a cinnamon donut, basically. But they're the best. So I've made a rule that if I'm ever around a beaver tail, then I can have one. That's they're hard to find sometimes, but there's key areas in Toronto where you can find them, and they're great.
So you can't go into like McDonald's or something, and it's not beaver tail on the menu. This is
No,
something.
so beaver tail is like it's a brand name, so it is it'll be like Dunkin' Donuts. So it's the brand is beaver tail. So yeah.
That's bloody phenomenal. Speaking of food, I was doing a bit of a research. There is something unique from there, or it's from there. It's originated in Quebec. Have you tried the poutine?
I have
What's
tried the poutine.
what is it?
It's
What
it's delicious. It is um it's chips, it's gravy, and it's cheese curds. Cheese curds is in everything here, which is divine. I'm loving that. But yeah, basically it's that. You can get other different poutines that have like, so that's your basic poutine, as far as I know. But then you can get like meat and all that kind of stuff involved. You can get chicken poutine. Like
is it
there are
like a
places.
main meal, or is this like a starter? I mean, like if it's like French fries, you might add it to your steak or your chicken. Well, obviously, if you're not a vegetarian, but is that right, or is this is the main course? Boom, a big bowl of French fries with. Is that how it's done?
I've been having it as a main course, but I know that's wrong. It is definitely a side dish or like sort of something that you'd eat alongside something
I
else.
googled it. It doesn't look like it's on a small plate. This is like a huge bowl. Like if this is a starter, that it seems like the portion of a main course.
It's huge. I find the portion sizes here, I can liken them to America's. Like they're quite large. So everything is just big. Like whenever we've gone out for dinner, I've never finished a meal. Like it's
Supersized and extra jumbo. Love it. That's right. Bigger and better in Canada, perhaps.
yeah.
Speaking of bigger and better, more research I was doing is the standard of living apparently is one of the best, if not the best in the world. Is that correct? Have you found that?
Yeah. Yeah. It's quite a good standard of living here. I think um, things are cheaper here than they are back home. Just sort of
How so?
food, eating out, that kind of thing. I think
Right.
Sydney's quite expensive. So I think moving anywhere from Sydney is a
Well, the
bit
Sydney with the rental prices and everything, and can be astronomically just horrendous. But is it just that they say like is your rent or purchase of your house about the same, or is it just like your day to day expenditures a bit less?
Day-to-day expenditure is a bit less. House
Yeah.
prices, because we bought this, we're renovating now. This is the only painted wall in the house.
Well
um,
done.
so we, yeah, the houses are definitely cheaper. So real estate is definitely cheaper. Uh, I don't think it's uber affordable. Like I wouldn't say like, oh, it's cheap or anything like that, but it is. It's definitely more affordable than what Sydney would be.
That's interesting. So, can you recommend? I mean, because I now obviously after all this podcast we were doing, I'm super interested and really want to visit. I won't be able to stay there for 4 or 5 months. I'll be but like a week, maybe two. What can you recommend? If I turn up and go, all right, Ben's in town, gonna do the touristy stuff. What's there to do?
There's loads to do, but there's not loads to do in the winter. So winter activities are definitely skiing, snowboarding. I'm going to do this weekend snow shoeing, I guess is what you call it, but like walking with those really big things on your shoes, which is kind of
Like the
exciting.
tennis racket type things?
The tennis rackets
Yeah,
on your
hike.
feet.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I know what you mean. It sounds interesting. So
um,
that's is that a thing, or is it something that you go, you know what, when in Rome, I want to give this a crack? Because I mean, how much snow is just even outside your front door? Or
a lot. I had to shovel the other day and it was past my knees.
geez,
So when
this
you
is,
open the door, you have to shovel to get out of the front door.
and
So
that's just standard.
Proud
Like this is
Road,
this is every winter. This has got to be done.
yeah, and it's
Wow.
extreme. We've got a snow blower machine, which is it's like a fun way to mow the lawns, pretty much. But you're shoveling snow, but you push this thing along, and it like shoots out the snow. Like
Will this be another TikTok video that can go viral? I can
yes,
I can smell some like day to day Toronto influence right here.
yes, it's definitely that. It's the kind of cold outside right now where if you get hot water and you throw it up into the air, it'll freeze before it comes
Jeez,
out.
that's hard to.
Yeah.
Okay, that's another video. I want to see that happen. That's it's hard to it's hard as you know. You're an Aussie. You know we're one of the hottest or the hottest continent on earth, or it's certainly the driest. But it's just hard to like. Yeah, that's a novelty. Okay, we're going to do that. And so once we plowed the road, what's there to do? Once the sun sort of melts all the snow,
Once
it's
the
sort
sun
of
comes
summertime.
out, I had a really fantastic day out in Toronto. I've been doing loads of exploring days, which have obviously turned into little TikToks of just sort of things to do. But I think one of my favorite days was I went for a canoe trip around the Toronto Islands, which is in the city. And I didn't know that that sort of activity was available to me in Toronto. I just kind of thought that was a very Australian kind of thing to do. But yeah, the Toronto Islands here in the city are just stunning. They're beautiful. They've got like a little amusement park on them. Everyone sort of goes to the park in the summer. But yeah, they've got little canals that go in and out through all the different islands, and you can hop on a canoe trip and do that. So that's probably my number one thing to do in Toronto. But then I feel a lot of the activities are seasonal based, which I think is really cool. So things like when the fall hit, everyone decorates out the front of their house for fall. Like they've got pumpkins and signs. And so you go to things like pumpkin patches and stuff like that. Pick your pumpkins for the front because it's not a food here. It's not a food. Pumpkin's not a food here, which I'm dying about. But yeah, it's just
It's a
you pick
dessert,
your
I
pumpkin,
think.
that kind of
Like
stuff.
yeah, you find pumpkin as a dessert, I believe, and we have it
Yeah.
in Australia. We have it as part of a main meal.
I know. All my
Yeah.
recipes contain pumpkin. I'm like, what am I going to substitute that for? Sweet potato, I guess. I don't, um, winter activities like Christmas here is beautiful. And I think leading up to Christmas, there's so many things to do. They do a Christmas market really well here. There's an area of Toronto called the Distillery District. And it's just like funky, cool, like little shops and markets and stuff like that. So they do a lovely Christmas market. What I find really interesting also at Christmas is everywhere will have like a Christmas light display. And I don't mean people just putting lights on their houses. I mean like a town getting together and putting a Christmas light display in a park and you drive through it in your car. It's a drive-through light display and they're everywhere. They're all in Toronto. They're all in the small towns and like they're raising money for charity and that kind of stuff. But families or companies that a local will put together a little light display, and you do this little path, and it's just crazy. Like
Wow.
it's definitely something I think Australia should get involved with. It's like a really fun Christmas activity. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's one thing we really suck at is, I mean, we just celebrate it differently because it's so bloody hot, you know, like the beach versus the snow. They're having that white Christmas is somewhat of an Aussie dream. So well
Yeah.
done. You've got it. You've got it many times over. I want to experience it now. You know, like I went to the UK. I spent one Christmas there in the hope, like, oh, it's gonna be, yeah, no, never got it. So that was my one time, and it's still chasing, still chasing. But
It is a dream. It's lovely.
oh, so doing a bit more homework. This is according to Wikipedia. Toronto's most visited tourist attraction with, well, this is probably prior to COVID, 47 million people used to visit this. What do you think that would be? Let's see if you're a local.
47 people.
47 million. Yeah, 47 people just goes to.
I would say. Oh,
It's got on Wikipedia. Someone could have faked this information.
okay, right. So it's reliable, but is it? Is it going to be the CN Tower? Tell me it's the CN.
No.
Not.
It's
Is
the
it a sporting venue?
it's the shopping mall.
Oh, it's the Eaton Centre.
That's it.
The Eaton
Is
Centre.
is that amazing? Like for 47 million people to be turning up to the shopping center, like, or is it what's its deal?
It's huge. If you need to get something, you can get it at Eden Centre, but can you find it while you're in there? Probably not. Well, I know I can't. I find I get lost in there a lot.
Is this bigger than, say, Melbourne's Queen Victoria markets, or is this like a Westfield shopping centre, or is this something like next level? I mean, the number one tourist attraction of a city of 10 million people.
Yeah, you can't even really compare it. I feel like every entrance that I've gone in to the Eden Centre, I've never exited the same way. Like I don't like it's if you want to get lost, you can. And I've only ever come out via the subway and just thought, oh, I'll just work it out via the subway. So
Well,
it's great though.
back on that, you mentioned the CN Tower. Is that the big
Yeah,
Space Needle thing? The big.
it's the big space needle. Yeah.
What's that about? Have you gone there?
Yeah, it is. It's so huge, and you can do a walk around the outside of it, but I haven't recruited anyone to be able to do that walk with me yet because
Oh,
it
this
is.
is like one of those adventurous things that you can hook yourself up and sort of like.
Yeah, you can actually lean off the edge, so they'll harness you up, so you
Like in Auckland, they got a similar sort of experience.
yeah.
Gotcha.
Interesting fact, also the sign language for CN Tower. I don't know if you know what it is.
I think I've seen this for one of your TikToks, but I'll let you go.
The sign language for the CN Tower is actually just flipping someone the bird, but you're having your hand on your elbow like that. So if you're looking for the CN Tower and you're in Toronto, just be sure to ask the locals. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh, that's a day-to-day nugget right there. That's good.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So, yeah, I just want to touch on a few of your TikToks, just sort of recap it because I found them so fucking hilarious. Roots fashion. What's the deal with this?
Oh, I knew you were going to bring up Roots fashion, and I thought I should have wore a Roots jumper. I do actually have Roots socks on, just to prove that.
What is it? I mean, obviously, Root in Australia. That's why I accidentally dropped an F-bomb. I'm thinking obscenities in my mind. Why is it so popular over there?
It is.
Do we as Australians go? Yes, go.
It's a Canadian-owned brand, and it's just really taken off. So it's quite a sort of high-end Canadian brand, I guess. But they just make really good loungewear, and everybody wears it here. Like absolutely everyone. And I think for me, moving here, it's just hilarious. When I first arrived, my partner Melissa got me a little care package of all things Roots. She's like, "You're gonna have to wear this when you're here. It's just what everybody wears." And I thought, I'm not wearing Roots, like that's rude, right? Like I'm just not. And then but when you see how much everyone wears it, and it's even got a beaver on it as well, so not only does Root mean what it means in Australia, but then they've put a beaver on it as well. So I thought, guys, you can't be helped, you really can't. So I've decided to just really take it on board and just own as much roots as I can. And then everyone bought me roots for Christmas. So I'm just
It's
roots
become a
coming out
thing.
the wazoo.
I'll be the same. I mean, you bring it back to Australia, like, oh, got roots on my jumper. Like it's, I'm so
Yeah.
popular. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah. But it's
Man.
just really good quality and comfy. I just love it as well. It's
All
cool.
right. One of the other TikToks, I didn't understand it, but it just made me laugh all the same. What are two progies? You're going through drive-through, and what's a proggy? What's a progie? You're
It's a
ordering that.
pierogi. That is a good question. It's like a little think of it like a Western dumpling, really. So it's like a little pastry and it's got potato and cheese on the inside of it and they fry it. It's delicious. It's kind of like a bit of an appetizer that you'd have. But yeah, when you order in a drive-through, please remember to never ask for lots of anything because in the TikTok, I constantly say, I just want two lots of pierogies. And then I try and order the rest of the stuff and she's stuck on the word lots because they just don't just two pierogies is how you order it. You don't say lots. It gets
Ah,
very confusing.
indeed. So my final question I'd like to ask you about that, because in my time I spent about a month in Edmonton and then about a few weeks in BC and like Vancouver. I fell in love with Tim Hortons coffee. It's a couple of bucks. You get like a liter. It's disgusting, but bang for buck. And you go through drive-through. It's freezing cold. You thought, this is really good. Like how convenient is this? It's horrendous. I mean, we in Australia have I think, probably the best standards of coffee in the world. And anywhere you go, it's very hard to find a bloody shit cup of coffee. But you go overseas, and it's very easy to find a shit cup of coffee. But Tim Hortons, I got a bit of a soft spot for it. But you found a statue to Tim Hortons. Is it right? Is the coffee
Yeah,
man?
so Tim Hortons is actually, I don't want to get this wrong. He's a hockey player.
Oh, that makes bloody
And then
sense.
he opened, so he's like a
He's a brand.
Canadian famous hockey player, like he is like the be all and end all.
Mm.
And he went and opened the chain of coffee houses as well. So yeah, so he's like a really famous guy. I think they may have sold the company, but I'm not quite sure about that. But yeah, Tim Hortons is an institution. Like you can't drive 2 minutes in this city without coming across a Tim Hortons. Like they're everywhere. And you're right about the coffee. I'm struggling so much being an Australian and having our coffee and then coming here. The only way I've gotten through it is to realize that what they call coffee is not the same drink that we call coffee. It's just you're just using the same word. It has to be a different substance
What do
because
they
it's
got? What do they? I mean, do they have like the jugs?
yeah, it's calculated coffee. Yeah.
Man, they're
And I wondered
lagging.
how they're making them so fast, but it's quite easy for them.
I was talking about they have one of the highest standards of living, but it's like it's gone down a notch in my book.
I know.
That's poor form, poor standards indeed.
I know. I've tried. I've found some Australian coffee shops in Toronto, which has just helped immensely. Like the first friend I made in Toronto is the guy that owns the coffee shop in Toronto. So um yeah, it's really difficult. Coffee I find super difficult. But I mean Tim's is great for other things. Like they do great donuts and stuff like that. But yeah, coffee is just, I mean, Canadians love it. They absolutely love it, but it's not for me. It's just because
Uh,
it's different.
you need to have a
Drink.
Canadian club after to numb the pain of the poor Canadian
Pretty
coffee.
much, yeah.
Well, would you like to sort of summarize up just before we wrap this up? What are your next TikToks videos going to be about in Canada? What's the next adventures on the radar?
Next adventures on the radar, I think, are doing more snow related activities. So I sort of did a video where I was doing all my snow first, like Snow Angel and things like that. I got a GT racer for Christmas. So I'm putting it together today, actually. And then on the weekend, I'm going to take it out for its first test run. If you're not familiar with a GT racer, it's like a dirt bike for the snow, basically, without
Wow.
the obviously. But yeah, it's just something you zip down on a hill on. It's going to be epic. If I don't, that could be the end for TikTok for a while. If I break my arm or something, I probably will injure myself. It's for children. It's not an adult's toy. It's for children, but it's
Oh,
for me.
well, Tracy, it has been a pleasure talking to you and sort of unpacking some of these things. I'm learning more and more about Toronto, certainly from an everyday perspective. But where can we find you? If you were to search on TikTok, what's your TikTok name?
Just everyday trace. That's it. It's just me doing things every day. So yeah, just everyday trace on TikTok. Yeah.
But there you have it, everyone. Listen up, search for it on TikTok. If you want to find your day-to-day stuff in Toronto at a very funny street level, I'm following it. I love it. I enjoy it. And I can't wait to watch more of these vids.
Cheers. Thanks, Ben.
Ciao. Bye.
Ciao. Bye.
You made it to the end of the podcast. All right. You know the drill. Give us a like, subscribe, or leave some juicy comments. And thank you so much for listening to Get Lost with the Travel Guide, where we talk all things travel, tourism, and adventure. See you next time.